Today was kind of what we would normally do on Sunday, so it really wasn't much going on other than we had some individual periods, and we did a 7-on-7 and a fast period of NASCAR offense and defense. So it was pretty light today. Trying to get them to understand that these next couple days on Tuesday and Wednesday are much heavier. So we're in helmets and stuff, and when we practice like this, and this team has taken over their own accountability system, but they're pretty focused on getting things done in the right way and with a certain standard. So couldn't be more proud of what this team is doing on their own. They're starting to take ownership and starting to govern themselves and understanding the purpose of everything that we do. They're almost don't need us, in a way. That's kind of the goal. I'm trying to get this team to realize that, coaches can only take you to the water, but you have to drink it and make sure everybody is on the same page about the process about being successful. And I think they're starting to use those qualities within the team. So pretty light day, pretty light day. So it was good to get some work in. As you know, guys that have been nicked up with some soft tissue injuries, we're trying to get those guys ready to go. So those guys will be, for like a guy like Robert Barnes, he'll start to ramp up a little bit more towards the middle and the end of the week. So we're trying to get some of the health back of those soft tissue guys, but I like where we're at. I like where we're at. We're doing some good things, and we got 10 days after now that this one's over. 10 days for our preparation and get ready to play.
Is that one of the biggest differences in the team this year? Is that it is player-led as opposed to last year? It sounds like there was a lot of guys that were just kind of quiet and kind of hanging back and didn't really know what to expect out of you and your staff.
I believe that's right, Brian. It's me being new and not really knowing really the full me of how we run our program. They were listening and do everything that I've asked them to do, but part of what I've asked them to do is govern themselves too, and that part took some time to develop. And I think those qualities really developed over summer. The summer programs that they did where the coaches weren't around, they really bought into the accountability piece about everybody working hard and doing their jobs and being as detailed as possible without coaches being there. And I think that led to a little bit more chemistry on our team. So I think you're right. It's been over a year now. They've known me. They know kind of what I'm all about, and they understand the expectations that we all have for each other, and they're owning it. And I'm very happy that they're moving in that direction.
Notice Greg Brown is listed as a volunteer assistant. Could you talk about kind of how that came about?
I coached with Greg back in the 90s here. He's the one that's responsible for 2 of those Jim Thorpe Award winners that we have in our history. And so he's an excellent coach. And, he was, I think his last job was at Purdue, and he has some time left on his contract. He has family here in the area, so he's here. So he just doesn't want to get stale. I think a lot of coaches that are not in a full-time position, from, being employed full-time, the last thing they want to do is just sit around and not do much. So since he has family here, his daughter's here, and she thrives here and lives here in Denver, he's very familiar with this place. So he's going to be a guy that we can utilize as a resource and help us on the defensive side, and he has a great level of expertise, and I know him personally, so I think it's a win-win for us.
Coach Rod was talking to us last week and mentioned that developing some depth on the offensive line, robust depth, is something that's kind of a work in progress at this point. I'm curious, just from your vantage point, how you see the depth on the O-line coming along at this point in time.
It's coming along pretty well. It's better than we had a year ago. We're waiting on Frank to get back. When Frank gets back, that'll give us another boost. The thinnest area is probably at our tackle positions still. But I think with Casey back and him being healthy, Kane and Ray, if you guys remember last year, he was came out of training camp dinged up, and he really, had some issues just maintaining his health in our season a year ago. Well, he was able to make it through camp and get all his reps, and he's a much better player now. So, with him, and we got Austin Johnson that's back, and so we think we have a tremendous amount of depth in the interior 3. The tackles are the one that we have 4 tackles that are there, but one of our best ones is, we're still waiting for him to come back, and hopefully he'll be back somewhere between week 3 and 4.
I think it was last week you mentioned that, still kind of middle of camp, couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Has that changed yet?
They can see the light at the end of the tunnel now. It's now that camp's broke and school's in, and kind of that we're not, don't have the camp mentality in terms of evening meetings and walkthroughs and stuff like that. So camp is broke, but we're still treating this week as really you're still in my mind, we're still in camp. We still got some work to do to get ourselves cleaned up in both sides of the ball and special teams. So this week will be kind of tailoring towards cleaning up those things, and we're starting a little bit of a intro to Northern Colorado today. So we'll continue to pick up that pace towards the end of the week, but we still have some things we want to work on and get some guys some reps at.
So sort of go back to my first question. How are you planning on doing captains this year?
We have a really good leadership group that's about 22 guys that really developed over the summer, and I think it's going to go by week, just what we did a year ago. But it's probably going to be relatively within that group, who we think is really demonstrating their quality of work, their productiveness, their leadership, ability. Which now I have 22 guys, and a year ago I maybe had half that much. So we have a good number of guys that'll be, I would say game captains for a given week. I think that's the best way. I even when I played, and I know that was kind of the traditional way, is to have your captains throughout the whole year. But I think my philosophy is different. I want a number of leaders to help this team grow and be as good as it can be. And to do that, you can't really just landlock your captains to be your captains for the season. So I just believe in the guys that are really raising up and doing the things that are required for us to be successful, and they do it consistently. If we have a group of those guys, then they all should have an ability to lead us, in a game week.
Does that lead to some competition throughout the season because guys
Oh, yeah.
earn that?
Absolutely, and that's my whole deal. Is to create a winning program. The culture has to be that way, and you have to compete within your team too, to maintain the status that you are, and hopefully that's those leaders still doing the things that got them in those positions. And then we want to continue to add more into that 22 group. Guys that are maybe right there on the cusp of doing some really good things, and those guys might even have a chance to be captains too if they end up playing at a high level and doing all the right things. So, absolutely.
Would you use that leadership group you mentioned? Are there any underclassmen in that
Yeah.
2022 group, or is it mostly upperclassmen?
No, it's a really good cross section of all the classes. We have freshmen in there. For instance, Gonzo and Brendan Lewis are in there. They're freshmen again. We don't have any true freshmen in there, the ones that just got here this summer. But we have freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. So we have a good cross section of all.
Would you use a different philosophy with the captains at the NFL level? Like, does it change college to NFL?
If I was in the NFL, I probably wouldn't. I still do it the same way. I just don't. I don't think it's appropriate anymore to just have 4 guys, and reason because what if I'm not playing well, and the team knows I'm not playing well, and I'm one of the captains, and I'm out there being a guy out. To me, I don't know why am I rewarding this person to be in that position, to lead out there, in a given week. So, I just think it makes sense. It makes sense not to do that, and you don't want guys getting comfortable if they're not playing well. Well, I'm a captain anyway, so you know what I mean? So you just don't want to reward things that aren't appropriate.
Do you make it a point to rotate guys through, or say like Nate Landman, for example? Could he just hold?
Well, sometimes, even like last year, for example, our special teams captain 2 or 3 times was like John Van Dies, and he was our best special teams player. He had the most tackles, things like that, and he kept consistently playing. And every time I would ask the leadership council there, they kept saying, no, John. I mean, they recognize it. No, John should still be there. So they're going to have input, in that, and that's all because we're all together on this. We want the guys that should be leaders to be the leaders, and the team knows that. And that goes back to the other part. If I had 4 captains for the whole year and I'm underachieving, the team knows I'm underachieving, and they're going to look at me like, they're actually going to look at the credibility of them being leaders is flawed, and then all of a sudden I'm not preaching what I'm saying, right? So I try to be consistent on all those things.
Thanks, Coach.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, guys.